Well, we're keeping a really close eye these days on moves made by coaches across the country.
Yeah, Michael asks, how can military academy athletes enter the transfer portal if they are government employees? Here's our Victor Puente with the answer to that good question.
While they are government employees, they're also student athletes, and the transfer portal is an NCAA process. That process can change depending on when they try to leave a school. Students at service academies, Army, Navy, and Air Force, including student athletes, can leave before their junior year with no penalties. However, at the beginning of their junior year, cadets take an oath to fulfill their service obligation. That means the next 2 years of school and 5 more years of active military service. If they take that oath but don't fulfill it, they will owe a commitment for active duty, or they may have to pay the U.S. government back for the cost of their academy education. That cost can be in the 6 figures. Students at the service academies cannot take part in NIL, but they are paid with tuition. West Point says, quote, West Point does not charge for room, board, or medical and dental coverage. Plus, cadets receive a salary covering all other fees, leaving them between $225 and $625 in monthly spending. So you don't see many upperclassmen leaving those academies. As for transferring to a military school, that is allowed. However, players are required to start over as freshmen. You have to complete the full academy experience. So people transferring out of one of those schools is rare. Transferring into them is even rarer. Now, people who choose to go to those academies say they're doing it to be part of something that is bigger than themselves. Army coach Jeff Monken said, quote, our guys play for the United States Military Academy and also play for the 1 million men and women who served in the U.S. Army. If you have a good question, just email us. Goodquestion@WKYT.com. I'll see you on WKYT Mornings.